everyone. I, Mudita Raj, Assistant Professor, Delhi Metropolitan Education, welcome you all today to the inaugural episode of the Vibrant India series. Vibrant India series is an initiative of DME Media School for celebrating 75 years of India's independence. As a part of this series, we will invite inspiring personalities for online talk, interview, and interaction with the students. This series will be a year-long exercise. The personalities chosen for this series will be from all walks of life and from all parts of the country. Our personality for today is Dr. Brigadier P.K. Saxena, VSM. Firstly, to introduce Delhi Metropolitan Education DME, it is an A-grade premier educational institute affiliated to Guru Gobind Singh Indraprasth University, New Delhi, and approved by Bar Council of India. The institute offers BBA, BALLB, and BBA-LLB with BCI approval and BA-JMC programs. DME believes in imparting world-class education to its students while training them to develop and enhance their skills. This education and training enables them in taking up challenges of the country and celebrating and creating a space for themselves in the professional world. Now, I would like to give you a little brief about DME Media School. DME Media School is one of the most promising media institutes of the country, focused on the growth of students and faculties alike. It is recognized as an institute focused for growth of all the stakeholders involved. Major activities of the school include BG Varghese Guest Lecture Series, Peer-to-Peer FDP, International Film Festival, SIFI, and ICANN, International Conference. It gives me great pleasure to announce that we are gearing up for SIFI 2021. SIFI 2021 will be hosted from 5th December to December 11th, 2021 in the hybrid mode. I now request Ishika Vadhva, student, DME Media School, to introduce our guest.
Dr. Brigadier P.K. Saxena. VSM has about 45 years of executive experience, of which he has spent about 15 years imparting training and management education. Sir has served in 7 counter-insurgency areas in Nagaland, Manipur, Mizoram, Sri Lanka, Punjab, Assam, and Jammu and Kashmir, and fought 1971 and Kargil wars. He has done pioneering work on stress management in general and combat stress in particular, an aspect appreciated in the Defense Institute of Psychological Research, Delhi. Sir is a widely traveled scholar and has visited countries like USA, UK, France, Germany, Belgium, Holland, Liechtenstein, Italy, Austria, Switzerland, Iran, UAE, Kuwait, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka. Sir has been associated with welfare activities in the army, looking after wars, widows, education scholarship for wards of deceased and wounded soldiers, rehabilitation of wounded and disabled soldiers, and ex-servicemen, including soldiers in Nepal. Sir has a vast experience and a unique approach to view problems and issues. He can design solutions and implement them successfully to streamline the education system functioning of a large organizations related to HR. Sir has worked at senior administrative positions with institutes like Banarasi Das Chandiwal Institute of Professional Studies, affiliated to GGS IPU University, Dwarka, Delhi, Vivekanand Institute of Professional Studies, affiliated to GGS IPU University, Dwarka, Delhi, Savera Group, Gurgaon, Haryana, amongst others. Sir has been decorated thrice for his services and gallantry, has been awarded with Vishisht Seva Medal in 2007 and Chief of Army Staff's Commendation for Operations in 1975 and later during OP Vijay Kargil operations in 1999. Now I hand over the forum to Ms. Mudita Raj, Assistant Professor.
Thank you so much, Ishika. I now request our technical host for the day, Dr. Teenam Bora, to please share some glimpses from the life of Brigadier Prabhat Kumar Saxena. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today. It is indeed an honor to host you. I now request Dr. Susmita Bala, Head DME Media School, to welcome the guest.
Thank you, Mudita. Thank you, sir. DME Media School is launching today as a new program, Vibrant India, in the digital space. India will be completing 75 years of independence next year. We have started year-long celebration in 2021. This program is a part of these celebrations. I welcome everybody in this inaugural episode of Vibrant India. I am particularly grateful to Dr. P.K. Saxena to accept our request to grace this session. He has done a great service to the national and we all acknowledge his contribution. I also welcome Mr. Aman Sahni, Vice Chairman of DME, for joining this session. Thank you to all of you.
Thank you, ma'am. I would now like to invite Mr. Aman Sahani, Vice Chairman DME, to please address the gathering. Sir?
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here and to be a part of the inaugural session of this series, the Vibrant India series. I'm thankful in particular to Brigadier Saab for taking out the time to speak to our students. I've met him a couple of times before, and it's always been very nice to talk to him. And I'd just like to say a few words about this series, about what it means, what it should mean to all of us. It is no doubt a celebration of our independence, 75 years, soon approaching, fast approaching. So it is no doubt a celebration of that, but it is also an exercise in giving a purpose to the freedom that we enjoy. And the philosopher, American philosopher Robert Nozick said that true freedom is situational, that freedom cannot be in vacuum. There is no point to absolute freedom. Freedom can only be enjoyed in a particular circumstance. And it is only when you do something and achieve something that you can actually enjoy that freedom. So, so along those lines, I think it is very important for us to assess where we are and to see what we can do and achieve what we can achieve. And in that spirit, enjoy the freedom that we have. So, so 75 years, like I said, fast approaching in 75 long years, and we've taken on this huge task of having 75 such seminars coming up, such sessions coming up, and in 52 weeks. So, so it is a lot of work. It is a lot of inspiration. It is a lot to look forward to, and I'm sure that it is something that all of us can take a lot from and contribute and improve, not only to ourselves, our community, but indeed the entire country whose independence we celebrate. So some very exciting times coming up, and I'm looking forward to it. My best wishes for this wonderful initiative. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I now request Dr. Amrish Saxena, Dean, DME Media School, an ideator and creator of Vibrant India series, to address the gathering and take the program forward. Sir?
Thank you, Mudita. Thank you, everybody. So it is indeed a matter of great pleasure that Dr. Brigadier P.K. Saxena has agreed to join this session in the inaugural session of this Vibrant India series. And particularly, we are grateful to him because he is not in India, he is in the US, and there is a time difference of 12 and a half hours. And it's early in the morning in Seattle, and still he woke up early, though, I mean, he is in a habit of waking up early, being an army man. So it's early morning, he has joined this session. So we are really grateful for that. And he is a person who has done a great service to the nation. And since we are planning to start this series, so we thought there can be no better person than a person who has really done some service to the nation on the ground. We all do something or the other, but somebody who has been on the borders, who has been fighting for the country, obviously we cannot compare our work with the work of a soldier. So I greet him in this session, and then I request Brigadier Saxena to please start with his motivational talk to the students.
At the very outset, I would like to express my profound thanks to the Vice Chairman, Mr. Aman Sawhney, Dr. Amrish, and Dr. Sushmita Bala for giving me this opportunity to address all of you and share my experiences. I'm grateful. Well, I've been asked to give you a talk on what all the youth should do for making this country a better place and thereby taking India forward. Indeed, a tall order, seeing that it is only 15 minutes that were given to me for this artist task. I may overshoot by 2-3 minutes. But I'll start by making the statement that if there is an organization which can be a symbol of resoluteness, determination, pride, sacrifice, and has remained uneroded over the years, it's the Indian Army. And I have been very proud to be a part of it for the last 70 years. I know some of you will think, why I said 70 years? Well, because I was born in an army family. I served in the army for 37.5 years. And even today, I remain an army man at heart. I need not say a word more about the army, as you all know what happened a few days back when we won the first track gold in Olympics. I can also say with a degree of conviction that there's no other profession which could have provided the environment to groom me better as a good citizen, a good member of the society, a soldier, a dutiful son, a responsible father, a husband, and above all, a good human being than my service in the defense forces in the army. I would share the story of my life and try to justify some of the statements I've made in the last 1 minute. Well, I was born in an illustrious Saxena family of Agra in 1951. I was second of the 4 children, and the upbringing was largely taken by my mother, as my father used to be away in field area. It was rare to have officers in the Indian Army those days, as they had basically been part of the British Army before independence. Well, my father was a rare personality, but my mother was even rarer. At a time when education was not the forte of women, my mother was an ideal. An educated personality. She was a postgraduate in political science, Hindi, an Acharya in Sanskrit, and held a bachelor's degree in law. Her fluency in Hindi, Sanskrit, and English was phenomenal. She wrote stories for the children, poems and songs, and later pursued her career in law and politics. These credentials laid the foundation for the upbringing of our children, where we grew up hearing stories of our rich cultural heritage from our mother. She was deeply religious, and I would say she was a pure vegetarian till her last day. With the children, she was firm, yet she loved them and trusted them and gave them full freedom. Her 3 dictates were very simple. Always tell the truth, come back home from play in the given time, and that she should not hear any complaints about us. Very simple to say, but the children are children. It instilled in us a sense of being truthful, the value for time, and a restraint from doing anything wrong. Few years later, the family moved to Delhi, and it was time that we were to be enrolled in school. Well, an incident took place that had a profound impact on my life. During the admission test in the school, I wrote, I don't know Hindi. Consequently, the admission to that grade my mother wanted me to was denied to me, and I was given a lower class. Back home, my mother cried. As being so well versed in the languages and particularly Hindi, she did not expect me to give this response. She said she felt let down, and I had not lived up to her trust. On that day, she obtained a promise from me that I would never let her down, or for that matter, anybody. And that was a promise which was never broken. I remained the best in studies, and I felt in retrospect it was her way of grooming us. From the early days, I was always fascinated by my father's uniform. I wanted to be an army officer. His levels of fitness, his demeanor, the respect he commanded at home in the family, the uniform he wore left a very deep impression on my psyche. And so when the choice for careers came up in the final phase of schooling, I said that I was keen to join the NDA, though my parents wanted me to become a doctor. Those days, unlike these, the parents had a fair say in your choice of career. But I trusted my mother, I spoke to her, and I just said, give me one chance for the NDA examination. If I don't get through, I won't trouble you. And it was much against the wishes of my father. She asked me for my reasons, heard them patiently, and smiled. I sailed through with flying colors, leaving it to my mother to convince my father about the decision and convey him the result. The reasons I gave were to be recalled later on in life at each stage. I said I wanted to follow my father's footsteps and go beyond. Unless the son does a little better than the father, how will the country progress? We had a family tradition and we maintained bonds not only within the family, but even with the colleagues with whom we formed bonds. One cannot feel prouder than to fight for the nation and be prepared to die if need be. It is true service for the country, and the army provided me with that opportunity. Yes, one can serve the nation in any capacity, whether it be a soldier, whether it can be an ambassador, it can be a teacher, it can be a judiciary person, anybody. But the organization which ensures freedom is the army. This profession would give me ample scope for adventure. I would be able to see the country from north to south and east to west. And above all, it gave me the satisfaction of intellectual advancement, doing various courses of education and obtaining degrees during my tenure. Being an army officer was a respectable job, class 1 gazetted officer. And above all, it gave a sense of responsibility as we were required to look after the men in war and in peace. It formed bonds which was out of rare camaraderie and a kind of a friendship for life. I think one could look after himself and the family for life, having joined the army. But there's one great secret which I did not tell anyone, was that we were 8 of our classmates as peers who were appearing for the test. Later on in life, it was 6 of us who became officers. My training in NDA was interesting, and I performed well, earned the silver bayonet in my final term, won a number of prizes. I've kept my promise to my mother. My father also felt proud of me, and I joined the Indian Military Academy as a gentleman cadet. But my happiness was short-lived, as he died in an unfortunate accident 15 days later. My mother resolutely kept the family intact, as even my elder brother hadn't started early. Though I was heartbroken, it only strengthened my resolve to join my father's regiment, the Kumaon Regiment, on commission. My performance as a gentleman cadet was good, and I passed out high in the order of merit. But this proved to be a bane, as I was posted to the Regiment of Signals due to my technical acumen and good performance in academics. I was again heartbroken, and I sought my mother's help to meet General Rana, under whom my father had served as a second in command. Maintaining bonds, the meeting gave me an assurance that all efforts would be made to get me back in the illustrious regiment. I eventually succeeded in 3 months and moved back to the Kumaon Regiment. It was a rare transfer. Well, I was lucky. I had followed my father's footsteps and felt something which I wanted to do all my life. My first posting was to Sikkim as a second lieutenant, and it saw me develop an immense love for the mountains. By the time one realized the 1971 war broke out, it's a different story, too long to be told too shortly. Nevertheless, after the war, we moved to Darjeeling and I felt in love with the Kanchenjunga range, which could be viewed from where the unit was. I saw the Himalayan Mountaineering Institute and I said I would do the course. I went for the course and came out with flying colors, won the Best Students Trophy. And the selection was made by none other than legendary Tenzing, the first man on Everest, and Awang Gombu, the first man to be on Everest twice. I was selected for an expedition. And I thought of pursuing this as a hobby very seriously. But again, luck had something else in store for me. During this tenure in Sikkim, the Chinese occupied a post on the border. The commando team was ordered to occupy another strategic post to counter the Chinese. And I established what is today known as Post Sher, which is now a major part of the defenses in the vicinity of Dokalam. Dokalam, the name has come up now, otherwise actually it is Dokala. This incident has a special place in my heart, as besides getting my first decoration, I saw the photograph of my would-be wife, a bride selected by my mother, sent to me through a Jawan. I therefore saw Nilma there first and married her in 1977. As a captain, I moved to IMA on a coveted posting as an instructor. The environment was extremely professional, and I decided to study for the Defense Services Staff College examination. It gave me a scope for intellectual advancement, getting a degree also. My effort succeeded, and I earned the first master's degree in defense studies from Madras University. My professional graph continued with the blessing of God, and I moved with the unit to Mizoram, Sri Lanka, where I tested my grit against the insurgents. My company did extremely well, and I was chosen for a foreign assignment to Bhutan and moved there. It was in Bhutan that I had an opportunity to show my mettle in the field of training the Bhutanese army and help them in certain internal operational issues. This was appreciated immensely by His Majesty of Bhutan and his family, and I could successfully project a very good image of the country abroad. From Bhutan, I moved on promotion to take over 15 Kumaon, the unit which I commanded, the only unit in the Indian Army to have 2 Ashok Chakras. The unit performed exceedingly well, earning the title Bravest of the Brave, given to a few elite units of the Indian Army. In recognition for my services, I was selected to attend the Long Defense Management course. Again, I performed well, got the Best Student Award and the Best Case Study. And the case study was on something which was my experience, and it was on combat stress. How soldiers behave when under stress in war and in insurgency. After the tenure in CDM, or College of Defense Management, where I was posted, I was promoted as a brigadier and moved to J&K again, given charge of the border with Pakistan. My tenure during the Kargil war was unique. I survived quite a few close encounters and was decorated once again. This was followed by a dream tenure at Ranikhet as the commandant of the regimental center, the cradle for the soldiers of the gallant Kumaon regiment. And by the time my tenure finished, I was moved to another insurgency infested area in J&K, till the time I was called to one of the finest institutions, the Defense Services Staff College, Wellington. It was here that I interacted with several eminent personalities who would come to give lectures, and I decided to pursue my doctoral studies. I thought it will be of help to me after retirement, and I would get an opportunity to share my knowledge with the younger generation and pay back to the society in a humble way. I finally moved to Delhi and took over to look after the welfare of the Indian Army personnel. I worked on a number of schemes and I was honored for my work with the Vishisht Seva Medal, my third decoration. I've continued after retirement as a senior consultant in Ansal, obtained a doctorate from AMU, pursued my passion for teaching as a professor, been in management colleges, been a registrar of a college, been a director of an institute. And the endeavor has been basically to guide and groom the younger generation. I also have my own consultancy. As an individual, I'm healthy, happily married, with children settled, and me presently contributing to society by teaching and guiding students, few of them in their doctorate studies. One of the greatest happinesses has been into ability to look after my mother, who stayed with me till her demise. My wife, Nilma, who is a postgraduate and a B.Ed, has been an academician, has been teaching for over 15 years. She's been contributing to our society, having been its president for 2 terms and currently the general secretary. I have 2 sons who are happily married, working in USA. Elder one, Dr. Ravi Saxena, IIT graduate, who's a senior director in Pacific Biosciences, a genetic sequencing chips company. Younger one is Mohit Saxena, who's director in Google, director trust response. Having been a soldier, a good citizen, a worthy son, a husband, a father, and a grandfather now, I can summarize as to what I have learned and what I have been able to pass on to the next generation. The cultural values passed on to me by my mother has guided my actions in life. I've always learned to trust my subordinates, and let me tell you, they have always responded. I was given full freedom. I have given full freedom to my children, to my officers, to my students. Work hard, do well. Discipline, well, it's the bedrock of discipline. It's the character building. And discipline automatically imposes a self-restraint, which is one of the basics for being a good human being. One must learn to keep a promise, and I can assure you it can be most satisfying. Whether you are young or old, one must maintain bonds within the family, with friends, with colleagues. This is what will help you overcome being lonely. Strive for being of value to the society, and nothing will give you greater satisfaction than contributing to the society and to the nation. In the end, I'll say it has been a great journey, and I feel satisfied that my contribution to the nation as a soldier, as a teacher, as a citizen, and to the society has been fruitful, and I see it move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Brigadier Saxena, for delivering such an inspirational talk. And I believe that by this time, I mean, all the students who are there in the session, they would have really felt some inspiration within. Based on whatever you told us just now, I have a few questions which I want to ask to you. As you said that you have been part of many insurgencies and the kind of things, then during those insurgencies, the way you dealt with those things, so what kind of values or what kind of spirit you learned from that, and based on that, can you suggest that how the youth of today can build the resilience?
Okay. There are 3 orders I gave to my men when I was in insurgency. The first one was, you'll never touch a woman or child. The second was, don't touch any possession of the people where you are serving. And lastly, if you are fired, shoot back. Don't wait. Full freedom. Now, this kind of the first order, that you will not touch a woman or child, is the basic form of character and conduct which is instilled in us. It is only that the men who are leading ensure this from their soldiers. I can assure you, with the bullets flying around, people can literally behave in a very, very different way. And I talked about combat stress. The American army, when it was in Vietnam and underwent this kind of a problem, they have something known as a post-stress traumatic syndrome. A lot of people have become victims of it. Luckily, our army has been, they are of a different fabric. They have got very close bonds at home. They are in the villages. It's a beautifully written book by James Coleman, Abnormal Psychology. NVC mentions a sentence about the Indian army, and he says, fear in the Indian soldier is unknown because he has got to go back to the village. If a person is branded as a coward or as a person who has misbehaved, it has got an impact in the village and consequently his family. In any case, the men whom I was leading, I have led the Ahirs when I was in 11 Kumaon, my first unit. I have led the Kumaunis and Rajputs when I was in Nagaland. Excellent soldiers, very good, obedient. But one must ensure, because when bullets are flying, things go haywire. This is what my take is from as far as the insurgency is concerned in particular. An incident took place in Nagaland where a big report was made against me and given to the chief minister. My brigade commander was called. He says, this officer has misbehaved in the village and things like that. So he didn't believe it, but he called me frantically. Luckily, I had done the homework. I had got the photographs of all that I had captured and everything. So when I went there, I was in the firing line of the brigade commander initially. I kept quiet. I said, fine, sir. I'm leaving this file with you. Will you just see it in the next 2-3 minutes? He just turned the pages and he said, sit down. He said, you've done all this? I said, yes. He straight away took me to the senior, that's the Major General there. General Sani was there. He said, he saw the file and said, Prabhat, you go away. I'll speak to the chief minister myself. That was the end of it. They knew I had done nothing wrong and my unit had not done nothing wrong. So this is the way we project the army in a civil environment, keep the good image, and also to the world. Let me tell you, I'm not saying this out of having been in the army. Indian army is one of the most humane armies in the world. The amount of counterinsurgency experiences which the Indian army has had, no other army would have had. Because these kind of things have come up within our country. I gave an experience in Nagaland, Mizoram, Sri Lanka, Punjab, J&K, Bhutan. I mean, I have fought everywhere. This is what my experience is.
Brigadier Saxena, you talked about the combat stress. So obviously, as an army man, you people are trained to manage with that stress. But nowadays, the youth is always under stress for whatever reasons. So can you tell the youth from your experience, how the youth of today can deal with the stress which they experience?
Stress is one of the very, very inherent psychological reactions to situations. You feel the stress when your threshold is low. If you raise the bar of threshold within your own selves, the stress will not be there. One may even feel stressed getting up when one is unwell and you have to even move around, you feel stressed. Will I be able to go there and pick it up and things like that? But when you are fit, you don't feel it. But even if you are unwell and somebody says, I am fit, I can do it, that will not be stress. Stress generally leads into a stress trap. You feel stressed. Suppose there's a heart patient, you feel stressed. I won't be able to climb stairs. And since you see the stairs, you see, since you're a heart patient, you can't climb. And since you have climbed, it will cause you damage again. It is stress for you. So the first thing is keep what your aspirations are. Stress is generated when your aspirations from yourself are not commensurate with your performance. You should know the stress level, your performance level, and set the bar. If you want to raise your bar of threshold, you must strive to work hard. Number one, the kind of environment which one has served in the defense forces, we must maintain bonds. In the army, we have something known as a buddy system when we are commandos. Our own sections, our platoons, we are all very close. Even today, I have contact with my men who have been with me in war. One of the greatest stress busters is friendship, close confidence. At times when the husband and wife are stressed, they talk to one another. At times when your children are stressed, you make them sit down. What's your problem? Give out what your problem is, we'll find a solution. This, even listening to somebody counters the stress. Listen to a person's problem. So I would say one of the best way of overcoming this kind of stress is a very realistic assessment of your potential. Set the bar of threshold, identify your objective. If it is falling short, be prepared to work hard. Take the help of everyone, your own families, your friends. Unfortunately, I dare say that people today are shy of seeking help, whether it is from their parents or from their friends. Ego issues. Don't keep ego. You don't lose anything. You overcome the stress. And let me tell you, people who remain stressed for long, it is bad for their health. It is bad for their behavior. This stress manifests in many things, and one of them which is visible is the behavior pattern. This is what I have got to say. Keep your objectives clear. Heighten your threshold bar. Do well.
Brigadier Saxena, you have fought two wars, 1971 war and then the Kargil war. So can you tell us some interesting incident that would have happened in the war? And I would also like to know any close brush with the life that you would have experienced during these wars, if you can tell us something about.
Okay. One has had experiences from second lieutenant till the time I commanded during the Kargil. I'll tell the last incident, which is very interesting. We were I was holding a brigade sector, and the area was divided in battalions, each given a task, and we had to, I'll say it in simple word. I told the CO, sort out the enemy in front, and we had made a plan. So for directing the fire, I came to the battalion, which was in the center, and we sat there with the radio set and all the lines and everything intact. And all of a sudden, after a little while, the artillery CO walked in and said, "Sir, why did you leave me? I am part of you. I am your advisor." I said, "I am sorry, Gogoi. Please sit down." So the firing was going on. And after a little while, I found one of the COs coming. "Sir, I have sorted them out. I have broken their bunkers and caused the damage which was predicted." And I said, "Come, sit down." All of a sudden, a thought came to my mind. I said, "Listen, we have 4 of us here. That's not correct. I think." So the CO of the battalion where I was sitting said, "Sir, there's another bunker down below. Nothing, even 2 bombs won't affect." I said, "Fine, let's go." There was an alternate communication center there. We directed the fire, and after the firing, we came out, got the report, all correct. And we were standing outside this bunker under a tree. There was a small gap in the thatch which was in front, and most probably the Pakistani OP saw us. Pakistanis have got air shells, airbursts also. They fired an airburst, hit that people tree. There was 4 or 5 of us there. It injured one officer in the hand, and one of the COs He retired as Lieutenant General. His name is Rajendra Nimborkar. He got a splinter in his chest. And he says, sir, I'm hit. I straight away carried him to where my chunga was parked on the rear slope. And there I went and saw my driver's face was splattered with blood because the splinter had hit the chunga, broken the screen, and the glass had gone into his face. He got hold of another vehicle, moved Rajendra. I put my hanky in his chest because it was bleeding. I thought I had to hope it did not hit his heart. And we moved him. He came back, repaired after a month. We're still friends. He remembers me for everything. And it was real touch and go. The different distance between Rajendra and me was few inches, so I could have also been hit. But what I realized from that incident was, when I was wanting to stay back and evacuate Rajendra, one of the Jawans said, Saab, we require you. Please take cover. These are the people you see in the heat of the moment. One said, no, I'll hold on. You move off. He says, move to a covered area. He was right. I moved Rajendra, came back to my command post. So one must listen, even if it is a Jawan, senior Jawan, he was a Havaldar then. And most of the officers were more looking after Rajendra, that he had been hit. As a CO, getting hit means the unit has a different kind of a feeling. So that was one of the very close encounters. I remember it. Of course,
Brigadier Saxena, you told us as to how you choose the career and how you decided to join the army much against the wishes of your parents. Now, career is one such thing which the youth of today is always concerned of and is always dealing with as to which career to go and what course need to be adopted, whether to abide by the orders or the instructions of the parents, or one should take one's own decision. What kind of advice you would like to give to these youngsters based on your experience?
I'll be very frank. I was permitted to do what I felt like. I did not impose on my children to join the army. I said, you do what you think you can do best. My elder son had an acumen for research, went through, did extremely well. As I said, he's already a senior director in PacBio. Brilliant boy. Younger one, totally a different personality. Good sportsman, but very, very intelligent, quick. He chose the line of IT. And in IT, he wrote some books on cyber security. And he progressed, though he's not IIT, but he has progressed as well as his elder brother. Being a director in Google is not a small achievement at his age of 40. I would say, first of all, talk to your parents, but they should also be equally providing you with the freedom to do what you feel like. You want to choose a career, choice is yours. You have to stay with it. You can take the advice of your elders. I would give advice to my children how to continue their studies or what they should do, but never anything beyond, never interfere in their life as such. Even they have chosen to marry out of their own choice. While my mother selected me from a Saxena family, we never insisted. They have married children of their own choice and they're both happily married. We are very happy with the whole family. So I would say, when freedom is granted to you, choose your career with due thought. There are a lot of factors which you should see before you choose a career. What is the scope of adventure? What is the scope for advancement it will give you? What is your own potential? If you don't have an acumen for a particular thing and you pick up that kind of a profession, you will have to struggle very hard. You will be generating stress on yourself. So your choice of career should not be based because my friend is going. Unfortunately, one of my observations is people go more out of peer pressure rather than out of advice of the elders. That is number 3. The number 1 is your own. I want to do this. And without fully realizing your own potential and your capabilities. It is very important to carry out what I would say a self-introspection to assess your own capability, your own potential, your own likes and dislikes, and there's something known as an aptitude. Do you have an aptitude for it? So these are important criteria.
Brigadier Saxena, we all take so much from the society in all our life, in our career, in our service, and every stage. But then what do you feel? After a certain age, we all should think of giving back to the society. In this context, I would like to ask you if you make some suggestion to the youth of today, how should they maintain a balance between what they take from the society and what they are supposed to give back to the society?
I would say giving back to the society can be divided in 2 parts. One is while you are in service, and one is your post-service period, when you retire. Now, retirement is a mental activity. One need not retire. Retire from what? That's a question I can ask. Now I'm over 70, so I can ask this question myself. Now, in service, you are contributing to the nation. My tenure in the insurgencies, how I ensured the conduct of my men. My tenure in Bhutan, where I forged a kind of a relationship between the 2 countries, Bhutan and India. And even today, I'm in contact with the people who are in the Bhutanese army and His Majesty's family. So this is a kind of a contribution you make to the society, to the nation. Now comes this, one cannot serve in any organization till he dies. Well, politicians do continue. I'm not talking of politics, it's a different thing altogether. I'll not say anything about it. But again, you can continue serving till a point, and you must take a kind of a assessment as to what is it that you wish to do after you retire. At each stage, I was understanding as to where I will reach without generating stress and getting heart attacks or anything. So I decided that I would do a doctorate. And that doctorate was basically to teach. And why I decided to teach was because I had been teaching in College of Defense Management for 3 years. I had a management education background as my destiny. So I chose that career. I contributed till the time I reached 65. And after that, I find people coming to me for counseling within the society, my own relatives, their children. I'm guiding some of my old faculty members for their doctoral studies, and they're doing excellent studies. So it is your own way of contributing. Now, it is the way you look at life as to what is your contribution. If one is giving to the society and to the nation good teachers in the years to come, good students which will serve as in good careers and do the nation proud, it is your humble contribution to the country.
Brigadier Saxena, since you have been in the teaching profession, or rather in educational administration, counseling as you are doing even today, so your experience with the education sector has also been quite long after your service to the army. So based on your experience and based on your interaction with the students, what will you suggest to the students today? I mean, what all virtues they need to have, what all qualities they need to have, and what all they need to have to handle their education, their career, and their life?
I would say that one has been fortunate as I have had the experience of working in organizations which were rural based, like in Gurgaon College of Engineering and Savera Group. The students which were attending those colleges were basically from that part. Whereas when I came to WIPS and to BCIPS, it was more city based. So I've seen the students from both the walks of life. But one thing which I saw was their ability to focus requires an introspection on their part. Don't become a waster. Pick up an objective and you want to achieve it. Just getting a degree and saying I am a master's in degree is of no consequence. I am reminded of a very funny conversation I had with the students in one of the colleges. I'll not name it. I said, why do you want to do MBA? He says, sir, I'll get a good wife or I'll get a good husband. Okay. Somehow I couldn't place the correlation between the two. Second one I asked, he said, I was a problem at home. So they said, go to college, you do something so that you keep us happy. Very good. I asked some girls, sir, at least is away from home doing all the daily mores. This was one viewpoint. Here I found some of the students literally enjoying life at their father's or their parents' cost. They would come in cars, roam around, studies wise, come and show their face in class at the end of it, focusing very little on the educational part. More focus was on enjoyment part. Enjoy by all means. Even in enjoyment, one can learn. I picked up mountaineering for enjoying. I learned that skill did me good when I climbed Sher. I was picked up to climb Sher based on my expertise in rock climbing and mountaineering. Just by luck. You can do many things. Like I saw in one of the institutions when you used to organize the activities of the journalism and mass and the media communication exercises of rangoli and paintings and pictures and 1 minute videography and things like that. Pick up something out of those. Pick up a career, pick up a profession, something which you like, and again, you have an aptitude. Self-discipline, a point which I had said earlier, is very important for you to do well. Without that, I am afraid you will not be able to divide time between. I have found people sleeping till 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. I really wonder how. Maybe I didn't do it at home. In India, we used to get up very early, and that thing has still stayed with me. I get up very early, sleep early. But sleeping till 12 o'clock, what kind of a body clock you have, biological clock you have, I really don't know. But people can sleep. And I find this more in the younger generation. Students, no worry about what you have to study. No worry about what you have classes, test tomorrow. We'll do it. Now, I think one must be a little focused.
Yeah.
Not that I say that you get up in the morning, 4 o'clock, start studying. No.
Brigadier Saxena, some of the students are eager to know, as to you refer to that you used to meet in the Defense College, a lot of eminent people, and you talked about your interest in mountaineering, and there you received your award from Tenzing. So can you tell us something about your meeting with the prominent people, about those people and what all you imbibed from them?
During the staff college, one came across some very, very eminent personalities. And right from people like Abdul Kalam to, the Dr. Ramana, who was there, the nuclear scientists, and We had eminent personalities. Nani Palkiwala, not Nani Palkiwala came in much later. Some eminent jurists came and gave us lectures. And I still remember Nani Palkiwala's address. He had spoken on We the People, you know, the first line in the Constitution, and his book is also there, the beautiful book. Each of them were quite focused. Each of them had chosen it as a part of working hard in life and moving upward. They didn't become eminent people right from the beginning. They strived hard. The entire story of the what we find in the movie about the first nuclear explosion, we met the personalities involved. In fact, one of my course mates was involved in the preparation for what went on there. In terms of the digging, it was his regiment which was given the task. So one felt that you could pick up a lot of ideas from them. But one thing we found was they were all focused. They had that zeal in them. They had that determination that they were prepared to work 24 hours a day if need be. They did not let failure stop them. And that gives me an opportunity to tell, you must carry out periodic review of what you want to achieve. You want to become an army officer, or you want to become a judge, or you want to become a director of a management institute. Today you are studying. What all should I complete at this stage? What all should I complete? When should I seek an admission in an institute or an organization? How much I should progress at which age in life? You don't become right to the top right in the beginning. So you must carry out a statement which we were taught. What is my aim and how far can I plan? Go periodically. It will help you regulate your life a little better, generate lesser stress on you, give you a feeling of achievement at every stage, and review your next options.
Thank you, Brigadier Saxena, for delivering such a nice talk. It was such a delight, and whatever we were in fact looking for, the kind of advice that should come from you to the students, which can make their life better. They can have better qualities. They can have better abilities to deal with the kind of situations that they come across, because obviously this is a difficult time that we all are passing through. So there has to be some courage in each one of us, that we deal with these kind of difficult situations with courage. So your talk will definitely give them some feeling of confidence. And so I'm really grateful for sparing that you spare so much time for us. And thank you so much, Brigadier Saxena. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ambrish, and thank you all the students for a very patient hearing. Very kind of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
The first impression that comes to our mind about any college: tall buildings, big classrooms, large lobby areas, thick books, IT labs, assignments, class tests, and projects. Nothing besides that. Every hour, minute, second spent here help us carving and shaping our persona, cultivating innovative mindsets for the challenging world. Learning is a lifelong process. Sharing knowledge, inculcating values of life, spark the innovative horizons of mind. Fun and frolic is the nature of every nook and corner here. A daily dose of thrill we are sure to get here.